Well, this programme has never been one to poo-poo other quiz shows, and if other programmes come up with new and original ideas, then we're only too happy to steal them. And so it is, with this traditional sense of fair plagiarism very much in mind, that we present our own version of Mastermind, featuring the same rules, the same format, and the same spotlight. And our first contestant is Mr. Iain David Hislop, who is a magazine salesman from Clapham. And your specialist subject is...
The life and fibs of Jeffrey Archer.
Your questions on the life and fibs of Jeffrey Archer start now. What is an archer and where does the term originate?
£2,000. It came from a brown envelope full of money he gave to a prostitute he'd never met before to try and get her to go abroad.
Correct. To whom did Archer say it was really like a breath of spring to meet you?
The late Robert Maxwell. Takes one to know one.
Correct. After awarding Kathleen Burnett first prize in a short story competition, what did Archer do?
Steal the story and pretend it was his own in her next collection.
Almost right. He included her storyline in his own collection, A Twist in the Tale. What false claim did Archer make about winning the Louth by-election?
He said he was the youngest MP ever in the House of Commons, which he wasn't. He was the fourth.
He was, in fact, the fourth youngest, correct. By walking out onto a bridge in Toronto, what trouble did Archer walk into?
He took 3 suits from the shop with him.
He was arrested on suspicion of shoplifting, yes. Which post, which never existed, did Archer claim his father had held?
He said his father was a colonel in the Somerset Light Infantry who'd won a Distinguished Conduct Medal, which he hadn't. And he said his father was also consul of Singapore, which he wasn't.
Whereas his father, in fact, was a caterer in Brighton and a bigamist. What was special about the £57 million Archer claimed to have raised for Kurdistan through his Simple Truth concert?
Well, he didn't raise 57, he raised about 7, I think.
Correct. On his visit to Kurdistan, how did Archer greet the assembled crowd?
He tried to do a bit of Kurdish and he said, "Bastard Kurdistan."
Is correct. Before buying what did Archer famously not talk to his wife?
Anglia shares,
correct.
Just as the company was about to be taken over.
During an athletics race at Oxford in October 1963, what achievement propelled Archer into the national press?
He was hit by a discus. Amusingly.
And stretchered off whilst competitors cheered. How precisely did Monica Coughlan... I've finished, so I'll start with the next contestant, who is a Mr. Paul James Merton, a former civil servant from Tooting. Your specialist subject, Mr. Merton, is?
The absurd revelations in the tabloid press between 1990 and 1995.
Your questions on the absurd revelations in the tabloid press between 1990 and 1995 start now. What was fired at an Airbus A340 at 500 miles an hour to test its durability?
Frozen chicken.
Is correct. Who repeatedly dialed police in West Virginia?
East Virginia.
A tomato plant is the right answer. How did the Irish Territorial Army in County Wicklow compensate for having no bullets?
Shouting bang.
They shouted bang when they fired. The Amazonian blue-fronted parrot killed in Oxford by an irate Mark Leach had annoyed him by repeatedly saying what?
Mark Leach, his name, Mark Leach.
Is correct. Yeah. What did coach Randy Brown offer his American football team as an incentive to play better?
His wife.
Sex with his wife. What was Don Snellgrove of the US Air Force doing that caused him to crash his £12 million plane over Iraq?
He was having a shit into a teapot.
I can't give you that. He was trying to piss into a sponge. His
dessert.
What crime did Colin Saad commit?
He was trying to have a shit into a teapot. I know, he stole people's cars and cleaned them and brought them back and then disappeared.
He stole people's cars, washed them, polished them and returned them to their owners. John Bloor superglued his buttocks together because he mistook the glue for what?
Nesquik.
His hemorrhoid cream. What was odd about the gorilla that a group of Mexicans attempted to smuggle out of Miami?
It was a gorilla in a man's suit disguised as a gorilla. It was a man in a gorilla suit.
It was an undercover government agent in a gorilla suit. What piece of music does a musical condom play when it splits?
I used to love you, but it's all over now. Yes, sir, that's my baby.
Beethoven's
I've started, so I'll finish.
Is the right answer. Why were Paul Osborne's racing pigeons so successful?
They had bikes.
He fed them on cannabis, is the answer.
But they had bikes as well.
Did he? Yes. And that concludes our brave, if ultimately misguided, attempt at our Mastermind round, which brings a present score to undreamed of heights, because Paul and Eddie are now at a dizzy 23, whilst Iain and Richard are virtually suffering from vertigo with 24.
Which one of the twins do you get on well with better? Iain or Duncan?
I'm drinking bar of both.
Yeah.
Since you put it that way. What is this thing about them being two people? What does this mean?
Iain and Duncan Smith. It's the first time identical twins have ever led a major Conservative party.
I see, it's a conceit.
Yeah.
It's a conceit, Boris.
Do you not know very much about your leader?
No, I do. I'm happy to say there was a very important...
It strikes me you didn't know there was two of them. So, how much you know, it's really up to
Well,
the question.
you claim you know a lot about your leader. I think we should probably put you to the test.
Your name, please. Is it your specialist subject?
My name's Boris Johnson.
No, it is in fact Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson. Isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
And your occupation, Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson?
I'm a member of Parliament.
Well, we'll gloss over that one. Your specialist subject is Iain Duncan Smith, whether you like it or not, and your time starts now. What is Iain Duncan Smith?
Do I have to do this?
Yes.
What is Iain I've never seen this on this show before.
What is Iain Duncan Smith's first name?
They're not silly.
George is his first name.
There's three of them.
What percentage of Iain Duncan Smith is Japanese?
1/8.
What percentage?
I'm sorry. Oh my God.
No, 12.5% is the answer. Yes. What did Iain Duncan Smith drop in 1992?
His testicles.
His hyphen is the answer. What did he do in the House of Commons canteen in June this year when staff told him it was too early to buy breakfast?
What was that for a trivial question? No. How am I supposed to know the answer to this ridiculous question? This is an insult.
I'm sorry, it's your leader. You should know about these things. He threw his tray in the air and stormed out, apparently.
I've never heard that. I've never heard that.
Yeah, yes, no, it's gospel. And finally, which Hollywood actress once propositioned his father?
Oh, Betty Grable.
Is the wrong answer. It's Marilyn Monroe. And at the end of that, Mr. Johnson, you've scored no points.
Well, I think it was
In the past, this programme has never been afraid to borrow, and by that I obviously mean steal, formats from other programmes. But tonight we're proud to introduce our very own original quiz, Master Brain. Our first contestant is Mr. Paul Merton, a former civil servant from Tooting. And your specialist subject, we've decided, is the Starr report. And your time starts now. What did Monica Lewinsky initially believe these semen stains on her dress to be?
Coconut.
No spinach dip. What remark did Clinton make during the notorious cigar incident at the Oval Office?
It won't light properly.
No, it tastes good. How did Lewinsky greet Clinton when he was shaking hands in a lineup at his 50th birthday celebration?
She kissed him on both cheeks. He was tiny shoelaces at the time.
I'll accept that. She grabbed his crutch is in fact the answer. What does Kenneth Starr ritually do every day at 4 p.m?
He f***s a goat. Sorry, a horse, sorry.
I can't accept it. Drink a cup of Earl Grey tea is in fact the answer. Who said in 1987...
that would be... coffee vending machine on the 5th floor of the BBC.
I've finished, so I'll start with the next contestant, who is Mr. Iain Hislop, a magazine salesman from Clapham. And your specialist subject is the life of Rupert Murdoch. Mr. Hislop, you have as long as I care to give you on the life of Rupert Murdoch, starting several moments ago. Age 7, what was Mr. Murdoch's first money spinner?
A topless playground magazine.
No, selling horse manure to old ladies. Or I
Same trade he's been in ever since.
Why has an Indian court issued a warrant for Mr. Murdoch's arrest?
Because they've got a really good sense of justice there.
No, for showing obscene films on one of his TV stations. Peter Mandelson regularly dines with Elizabeth Murdoch. What is his role in Mr. Murdoch's bid for Manchester United?
To help it through. Oh no, he's meant to officiate as president of the Board of Trade. It's very easy to confuse.
Yes, it's his job to...
When I saw that headline, it said Murdoch buys United, and I thought it just meant kingdom.
What is Rupert Murdoch's first name?
Satan.
No, Keith.
Keith.
Why did Star TV, Murdoch's Asian-based station, axe BBC World News?
Because the BBC kept putting the truth on, which is obviously pointless if you're a Murdoch-owned satellite. It was about China. They kept suggesting there'd been a massacre in Tiananmen Square, whereas Rupert knows perfectly well that all those people committed suicide in an attempt to discredit the democratic regime currently operating in China.
Yes, correct. At the end of those questions, Mr. Hislop, you scored a 2. Our next contender is a Mr. Magnus Magnusson, a quiz show host from Reykjavik, and your specialist subject, Mr. Magnusson, is obviously Mastermind. You have as long as you like on the subject of Mastermind, starting now. What unpleasant fate befell the Black Chair in 1978 and 79?
It was kidnapped.
It was kidnapped, the first time by students for a ransom of £50.
Yes.
What question did you get wrong on Quiz Ball in 1968 that would have won the programme for Kilmarnock FC?
What was the name of the American playwright who married Marilyn Monroe?
Correct. And who was the American playwright who married Marilyn Monroe?
I had problems with that, because all I could remember was the name of the surgeon who operated my mother's kidneys. And his name was Douglas Arthur.
I can't accept that. It's Arthur Miller, in fact. One question in 1977 led to a viewer complaining that you had mistakenly given Christ's first name as Reginald. What was the question?
It was a very reasonable complaint to make. It was a question in a specialised subject on the life and works of P.G. Wodehouse. And the question was, what was Jeeves's Christian name?
Absolutely correct. And what was Jeeves's Christian name?
Reginald.
Correct. Mastermind has its own fan club. What's the name of its magazine?
Pass.
Correct. Which language did you most dread having to read as part of the questions?
French.
Correct. Marcel Proust's Remembrance of Things Past was entitled what in its original language?
Are you ready for this? À la recherche de la tombe perdue.
No, à la recherche de temps perdu. And at the end of that round, Mr. Magnusson, you have scored 6 points. And so to our final contender, Mr. John Simpson, your full name, please.
John Cody Fiddler Simpson.
Mr. Fiddler Simpson is the BBC World Affairs editor, and your specialist subject is, therefore, Christmas cracker jokes. Mr. Fiddler Simpson, you have as long as you can stand it on Christmas cracker jokes, starting...
I've had enough.
No. What's black and white and red all over?
I think that was a nun that was knocked out. Oh no, that was something else.
I'll accept a nun chewing razor blades. What's brown and sticky?
Is that what, a stick, is it? A stick. A stick.
How do you make a Venetian blind?
Sand in his eyes.
Sand and put sand in his eyes. Listen, I'm sorry. I really am sorry for everything I've done. You know, I confess. Whatever it is, I confess.
Poke him in the eyes, in fact, the answer.
Colonel Gaddafi wasn't farting at all.
What time did the Chinaman go to the dentist?
I don't know.
2:30.
2:30. That is... doesn't racism enter into this at all?
Never bothered us in the past. What's green, hairy, and goes up and down?
Gooseberry in a lift.
A gooseberry in a lift.
What's pink, hairy, and hangs out your
A
pyjamas?
gooseberry in a lift.
No, your mother. After which momentous effort, it transpires that Paul and Magnus scored the most and are therefore awarded an enormous 1 point, bringing the scores to 9-7.
And so to round two.
John?
And yes, Ian.
You know when you're on the Today programme
Yes,
and you have a guest on
Yes.
to talk about one thing?
Yes.
And you say, well, look, while you're here, can we do something else?
You're not going to be rude to me, are
No,
you?
it's just you do Mastermind now, don't you?
I do.
Well, we thought while you were here... Your name, please.
John Humphreys.
Mr. Humphries, your specialist subject is the life and times of John Humphreys, and your time starts now. Who said in an interview earlier this year, to lose your temper is unforgivable?
John Humphreys.
Correct. And what did he then do during the Today programme on the morning of Friday the 17th of October this year?
It was reported in the newspapers that he threatened to resign.
He lost his temper, didn't he, John? He was heard shouting in the background, according to The Guardian.
Why would I have shouted according to The Guardian?
What phrase did you use to describe the England football team during the 2002 World Cup? You said they were a bunch of overpaid tossers.
And?
And is that still your view?
Pass.
In 1995, what did you give as a present to the then Chancellor of the Exchequer, Ken Clarke?
A calculator. And when I handed it to him, the Chancellor of the Exchequer said, "Oh, what's this?" I said, "It's a calculator." He said, "Ah, I've never really figured out how to work one of these things."
In 1995, who suggested the BBC should be renamed the Blair Broadcasting Corporation and accused you of ego trip interviewing?
Jonathan Aitken.
Subsequently convicted for perjury. By 2002, how many invitations to appear on the Today programme had Tony Blair turned down since coming to power?
Couldn't count.
40. How many times has Blair appeared on Breakfast with Frost?
45.
19.
Close.
On the Today programme on 2002...
You're meant to say I've started, so I'll finish.
I've started, so I'll finish.
Go on.
Either that or the microwave's ready.
Someone had a go at you, remarking ironically about your nice, balanced package. Who was that?
I never did find out her name.
It was Iain Duncan Smith. And at the end of that, Mr. Humphreys, your score is... who cares?
So, Clive, you are the new host of Mastermind, taking over this summer. Congratulations. But we actually thought that giving a nod to the format would just be a bit predictable and lazy. So, but we're going to do it anyway! Of course we don't have the budget. Hello, welcome to Have I Got News for You. Iain. What? Sorry, Iain. What is your specialist subject?
What, generally?
Yeah, just generally.
For this evening, it's the life and lies of the Prime Minister.
Well, that's good to know, but your question is based on the Greek alphabet.
Oh, good.
Which letter in now means either a very small amount or there's a new strain of virus in New York?
Micron?
No, it's actually iota. Roshi. Ooh, what's yours?
I'm ready. I've been waiting for this my whole life.
What's your specialist subject?
Pasta dishes.
Okay, but your question is about this man. His name is Jem Wakeman. My question for you is, why is he disappointed?
And why is death waiting for him up on the hillside?
Is it to do with he's worried that he can't get down the hill and hold his cheese safely?
Well, no. He's disappointed because for the second year running, the famous cheese rolling event in Gloucestershire has been cancelled. It involves thousands of locals racing down a steep slope to try and catch a wheel of double Gloucester. The man in the picture is Jem Wakeman, master of cheese. Ooh. So, Clive. Sorry.
I am now officially blind.
What was unusual about what Sean Leigh was wearing when he appeared on BBC News on Tuesday?
Was he in shorts?
Yes, so let's have a look. There he is.
It was very hot.
And then, Paul.
Yes.
What's your specialist subject, please?
Items that seemed like a good idea at the time but didn't make the final edit.
OK, well, actually, your question's about Mastermind.
Oh, good, yeah, good.
In 1987, married couple Paul and Christine Hancock competed in the same edition of the show. Both scored 34 correct answers and 2 passes. Mr. Hancock won the playoff by 1 question. What did Magnusson very appropriately call that edition of the show?
Mr. and Mrs.
No, he referred to it as Hancock's half hour.
There was a story that he was fond of telling Magnusson that he got a very angry letter from on one occasion from a viewer that said, I was appalled at the last edition of Mastermind when you asked the question, what was Jesus' first name? And you gave the answer, Reginald. And he replied, no, I said, what was Jeeves' first name in the booster? It was Reginald. But I like the idea of a Reginald Jesus.
I love that. Well, great quizzing, everyone. Woo!